Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Meeple Empire. I'm JR, and this disgruntled individual is my trusty sidekick, Palmer.
I'm not disgruntled. I'm very gruntled.
Oh, yeah, you got all your gruntles in a row?
Yep.
All the gruntles are accounted for.
Yes.
So, we're going to try to fire on all cylinders. I know we've kind of missed a few weeks of consistency, if you will.
Memory or...
Yeah, well, that's... Work is killing me, man. Work is killing me.
Oh my god, I actually have to go to work.
So, let's start with TV and cinema. You've been a few weeks.
They are things that exist in this modern world.
And in the time since we had cardboard cutout Palmer, you've had the opportunity to see several films.
None of which I remember.
What did you see last Thursday?
Last Thursday I saw The Mountain Between Us. I was very saddened. I mean, it was a good movie, but right around... I want to say it's like a 2-hour movie, which is actually kind of breezy nowadays. But right around like the hour and a half mark, I kind of gave up on the notion that Cthulhu was going to show up, which made me sad.
What about Idris Elba? What did you think?
Yeah,
of...
he sucks.
Dude, one of these days,
I don't
I'm
really.
I'm gonna get arrested for beating your ass.
Here's the thing. I don't really have a problem with Idris Elba. I just hate the fact that the internet, because I never see these people in real life, but the internet thinks he needs to be cast in every movie as the black guy. Like whenever it's like, hey, we're gonna do a Black Panther movie, Idris Elba. We're gonna do a Rocky 3 remake, Idris Elba plays Mr. T. We're gonna do Thor, Idris Elba needs to be Hemdale. We're gonna do a Family Guy live action movie. Idris Elba needs to be Cleveland Brown. I'm sorry, he's a good actor, but he should have more opportunities than just the black guy in movies.
Okay, now I strongly disagree and think that you are fucking going way overboard with
really?
This. But I mean, Luther,
really,
fantastic.
Like it's almost
He's
as
done
bad.
So many fantastic things, and he
I mean,
isn't that black guy in everything.
The internet thinks he is.
Maybe the internet thinks he is, but I mean,
like
it's not like he's
personally.
accepting...
I want to see Idris Elba as the Great Gatsby. Took me a minute to remember the title I had in my head when I started that sentence, but I got there. I want to see Idris Elba play things outside of the norm. I mean, other than that, like he's good. He's okay. I think the downside is I've seen him in more bad movies than I've seen him in good movies. Not necessarily his fault. Like Dark Tower, not a good movie, not his fault.
Disagree, but...
Both Thors, horrible atrocities, not necessarily his fault. Although I think everyone kind of shares a blame in that one.
Okay, let's step away from the MCU. I caught Geostorm. Now, not for nothing, I reached out to the interwebs to see if I can get someone to come and see the Snowman with me. That attempt was failed quite miserably, and rightfully so. What was it? The director came out on the social medias admitting that he knows why his film sucked and talking about the 10 to 15 minutes that he couldn't actually shoot.
He's one of those directors.
Yeah, so...
I hate those.
I still think that it would have been nice to see Fassbender because, I'm a fan of his work. Do I think he's good enough to carry the film? Hey, anything's possible.
He's carried movies in the past. I mean, he essentially carries... not Alien Covenant, the one that took place before that. Prometheus. He essentially carries Prometheus. I'm not a huge fan of that movie. Like most Ridley Scott movies, that felt to me like a really good trailer. Like the trailers for his movies are always really good, and he just takes too long to develop the material. But Fassbender was really good in that. And I mean, he's probably the best parts of the last few X-Men movies. Although I've liked the movies, I feel like he's a good part of why they're good. So he definitely can carry a movie in my mind. It's a matter of whether or not everybody else in the film can at least not go backwards. Because it's one thing to carry a film. It's another thing to try and carry a film where everything else is pulling you back. Okay. But I do want to see the movie. I just haven't had a chance to. And I'm going to see Geostorm tomorrow.
Okay.
Because I want to see all of the special effects, explosions, and Gerard Butler. Like, you give me special effects and Gerard Butler, I'm there.
Okay, I'm going to rain on your parade.
You can try, but I think Armageddon is one of the pinnacles of filmmaking, so there's very little you can do to rain on my parade in this instance.
Okay, Geostorm?
Yep.
Probably the worst natural disaster film I've ever watched.
See, right there, I don't think... No, shut it all down. Turn the lights off. Get that, I'm out of here. Bye.
Sit your ass down. Get back over here. I'm going to explain why. Get your ass back over here. So, on the subject of Geostorm, now, I too am a huge fan of Gerard Butler. It's been a while since he's done consistent work.
Lies.
He's got Geostorm. There's basically a
he did those
bad
two Secret
thief,
Service movies.
Batter Cop. Yeah, but Gerard Butler was a name that was just churning out movies for a while.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
He was Phantom of the Opera, and it all went downhill from there.
Well, now he's few and far between. In the case of Geostorm, I think the movie had a lovely concept, and I think it could have been so much more. I just think it tried to do too many things in its runtime.
No, there's no such thing as too many things in
I'm
a
telling
special
you,
effects movie.
You know what? They tried to make it a good brother, bad brother film. They tried to make it a partial love story film. They tried to make it a secret romance film. They tried to make it, this natural disaster film. They took on way too many things for the runtime, and in my opinion, never truly capitalize on any of it. No. Outside of the occasional, well-placed quips, AKA you have the brother's secret girlfriend, and the president in a taxi cab. And the Secret Service girlfriend does some crazy automobile maneuvering and is firing guns and doing all these things. As you lead into that, it's this Secret Service relationship that is frowned upon and they're quiet about. Once this happens, the president is all out but saying, you should marry this girl. Yeah. There was some well-placed humor. No, see, I just don't think there was enough of anything to carry.
You're overanalyzing it. Anyone that has a problem with these types of movies, and I haven't seen it. I'm watching it tomorrow. But I know these kinds of movies. This is like Armageddon. This is like, not necessarily Deep Impact. Deep Impact tried to be more than what it was. But it's like Armageddon. It's like those styles of movies. When you have Transformers, even to a certain extent, when you have those types of movies, anyone that really doesn't like them is missing the entire point of the movie. The entire point of these movies are you go in, you switch your brain off for 2 to 3 hours. Because any of these movies, if you think even remotely too hard at it, the whole thing kind of falls apart. And you just watch the pretty pictures. Like, that's all these movies are.
No, but honestly,
And these movies don't try and be anything different.
No, the special effects, even the special effects, they just... You have 3 instances, 2 out of 3 what you see in the trailer, where you see the impact of these natural disasters.
Okay.
They just, again, it wants to be a natural disaster movie, but it doesn't hone in or capitalize on the genre. It wants to be a forbidden love story, but it never fully develops. It wants to be a romantic space comedy, and it doesn't fully develop. There are just too many things going on, and I look forward to hearing your feedback once you've had a chance to view it.
I think you just hate bad things, or good things, rather.
Yeah, exactly. I think you said it right the first time, and that was a Freudian slip.
No.
But kind of moving away from that, now I know this will air just after Halloween, and on the sense
All
of
Hallows Eve, as people call it.
And on the sense of TV, we're going into Stranger Things 2 being released on Netflix. And we also get to look forward to the fact that the Punisher series has received an official release date, which will
up
be...
until the next mass shooting, in which case they'll push it back again.
I still think that was unwarranted when they did that at the Comic-Con.
No, it was I gotta give them credit. Wasn't the time to promote a gun-toting maniac as the central point of a TV show. You know, would I have pulled the panel? Probably not. In today's world, I understand the reasons they pulled the panel, and I commend them for it. However, pulling the panel and then 3 hours later announcing a partnership with a war profiteering company was probably the dumbest thing Marvel's ever done in their long list of dumb ideas.
Well, before we talk about Marvel and anything in that universe, Stranger Things, are you looking forward to the second season?
I still haven't ended the first season. I'm assuming people live because they seem to show up in the trailer for season 2. The show plays so heavily on retro 80s Goonies that you need to have a love for that, and I despise the Goonies with every fiber of my being.
I'm not going to warrant this with a response until after I've got a chance to watch the second season. I think you are strongly incorrect, and I think you really got to go into it with an open mind.
I did.
And watch the entirety.
Every single episode.
No, you need
it
to
was
watch...
just Goonies. The only thing that was missing was Cyndi Lauper's soundtrack.
You need to give the entire season the full...
I can't.
The full credit it is due.
I can't. I tried. This was like 6 months ago. I tried twice. When it first came out, I started watching it, and the first couple of episodes, I'm like, all right, this is kind of interesting.
You're going to force me to walk out of my own fucking set.
And then I didn't watch it. And then over the summer, I was like, all right, I'm going to try and watch this again. And I started again, and I got further, and I think I have, like, maybe 2 episodes left. And I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
So,
I don't care.
We've been very unsuccessful today with TV and cinema, as we can see.
I just don't care.
Let's move on to comics and all things visually narrated. Anything new?
Isn't that what movies and TV do?
Yeah, well, you know. I'm looking at it in book form. What's new in the wonderful world of your favorite universe, otherwise known as the MCU?
I don't know. I haven't picked up a Marvel book in just about a year now. So, your guess is as good as mine.
So, Marvel fans have nothing exciting to look forward to? No big releases?
I mean, if they're Marvel fans at this point, they really need to go home and rethink their lives.
Okay, let's enter the DC universe.
Doomsday Clock comes out next month, so I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how it goes.
What about with the Dark Metal? Any Dark Metal updates?
No, it's still chugging along. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean,
are you still enjoying it? It sounded like you were kind of conflicted in the beginning, and
I was conflicted in the beginning just because I didn't know exactly how long it was going to take for them to get the exposition out of the way and get me some good old, some good stories. They were able to get the exposition out of the way within a couple comics, because it was such dense exposition that the fact that they did it all at once was good, because then they could go out and they could start telling the story and get to the really fun and interesting parts. It's drawing on a lot of the history of Batman. So that's good or bad, depending upon how much knowledge you have. There's nothing worse than sitting down and reading a book that you've been reading for, say, 2 or 3 years, and then this storyline is just like, well, there's this stuff from 2 or 3 years ago, and then there's this stuff from like 30 years ago. Well, I never read the 30 years ago stuff. Can you give me a good description of what I need to know? They just announced yesterday that they have Grant Morrison, who had an acclaimed Batman run pre-New 52, is going to come back and write one of the one-shots for Metal, because there's a bunch of stuff from his run that they've kind of touched upon.
Okay.
I mean, if you like Grant Morrison's Batman run, this is great news. I kind of came in at the tail end of his run when he was kind of being way too Grant Morrison-y, where if you need to take acid to understand what's going on, it's not necessarily a good thing. And the biggest fault I've always had from Morrison stuff, aside from the obvious drug-induced stuff, is I'm a firm believer that Grant Morrison, when he decides to write a character or a book, if he hadn't already, he's going to sit down and read every single comic about that character ever. So when he did Batman, if you hadn't read the 70 years of Batman prior, there was a good chance you were not going to know what's going on some of the time. And I don't like that.
Okay.
But Metal's chugging along good. Doomsday Clock's coming up in November, so we got some good stuff on the horizon.
Now, let me ask you, the JLA finally got their full final trailer. Any last minute thoughts as we go into game time and the clock ticks till we actually see the film in the theaters?
Well, I mean, after watching the newest trailer, I think I can speak for everybody in the world, and officially say that conservatively, though that 3-minute trailer was probably easily the second best comic book movie we've seen yet this year. Just those 3 minutes. I mean, it blew out pretty much everything sans Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was really good. I don't know if it's going to be better than Wonder Woman.
So what was your take on the
trash?
The Superman?
There's no Superman in the trailer.
Yes, there is.
No, there isn't.
Sorry, Clark Kent.
That's a dream sequence, and you can tell because she wakes up from a dream.
I'm just
Superman
saying,
is dead.
What is that your final take on it?
Superman is dead and isn't coming back. No one ever returns from the dead. I don't know why you're. I don't know why.
I'm just asking if that's your final take on it, or if you think
I had one of my friends watch the trailer, and they sent me a text. They're like, "Where's Green Lantern and where's Superman?" I'm like, "Well, they've said Green Lantern's on in the movie because they never cast a Green Lantern," and I was like, "And Superman was dead. Didn't you watch the last movie?" It's like, you know.
Well, it could be that the last movie was just that forgettable.
You mean the greatest piece of cinema ever? Yes,
like
I agree.
said, that the last film could have been just that
should have won every single award ever.
All the awards.
All the awards. Not even just like that year. Like any previous years, they should have just been shipped to them.
Forgettable.
Great.
Moving on. Now, the board game world, this is a bit overwhelming. We have so much stuff that's kind of hit the shelves between Den of Winter getting Dueling Colonies finally. Raxon coming out. Again, that featuring a couple of promos for the original Dead of Winter.
Which you still haven't bought yet.
Which I still haven't picked up yet. Because why didn't I pick it up? Because you gave me this.
Like 4 months in a row, you're like, well, where's Raxon? Where's Raxon?
Well, when you give me a stack of books.
Yeah.
And like 9,000 games all in the same week.
Yeah.
A man must make choices. Choices were made.
You chose poorly.
So, with Dead of Winter, with Raxon, you had the expansion to the Harry Potter deck builder. And you have this right here, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. Baldur's. The reason I kind of just wanted to hyper-focus on this just for a couple minutes is this right here was a board game that it took every ounce of everything I had not to pick this up at New York Comic Con, which was officially the first day of its release.
Yes.
I am happy that I did wait and was able to support a local FLGS, only because the one thing that was really driving this purchase was a exclusive card that was on the front of it. I wasn't sure if that was a promo only exclusive to the convention. It turns out that this first run, at least, also had them taped to it. So if you want to pick up this gem and get yourself some promos, definitely now's the time. You can get those first prints of the promos.
I would imagine so.
And we'll obviously be doing an unboxing of this and potentially a playthrough at some point in time, because if I don't remember correctly, we like Betrayal.
We do.
And you cheat like a motherfucker.
I do not cheat in Betrayal. I don't cheat in general. You
cheat like a motherfucker. You're always the traitor. So.
You people deserve to be stabbed in the back.
Speaking of which, in the past we've had the opportunity to kind of bounce off of Rolling Outlaw games. I was kind of hoping, us cumulatively, to kind of kick off kind of a back and forth. I believe we were focusing on Arkham Horror for that. I was hoping that would come to fruition before Halloween. It looks like that'll start rolling out shortly after. But those of you who are interested in Let's Plays and watching us kind of beat on each other in the company of others, that will kind of bounce from show to show. So that's where we'll be doing kind of some gameplay over at Rolling Outlaw via Twitch. And we'll also be doing some in-house here. And whether we go under the Let's Lose This Shit moniker or how you want to roll that out, stay tuned, because that will be coming at you very soon now that we're in a bigger space and have more room to support things of that nature. Anything you care to add?
Yeah. This week was announced that Wizkids has picked up the licensing for Games Workshop.
Correct.
The three things that they've announced with absolutely zero information after the fact is they will be reprinting Fury of Dracula, which is a great game. So if you see it and you like it, don't go out and spend the $100, $200 that it's currently costing. I don't know if it'll be even cheaper than the Fantasy Flight version, but WizKids does the D&D board games. So they have a good track record of production quality for board games.
Yep. Castle Ravenloft is right behind us.
Yep, and they got a new one, actually, I believe, that comes in this week. But aside from that, one of the things that they do is now, with like the D&D ones, they've been doing the pre-painted versions as well.
Yep, they did that for, what is it?
For the past two D&D ones.
For the Giants.
Yeah, and they're doing it for this one. So that'll be interesting to see if we get pre-painted minis with Fury of Dracula, because I don't believe the FFG one was.
Fantasy Flight, it was just straight.
Yeah.
I want to say there were gray miniatures and there were brown plastic miniatures.
Yeah.
I think you had both.
Yeah. Then I believe another reprint is Relics.
Yep, that would be Relic.
Yep, that's going to be coming down the pipeline. And then what I'm assuming is just an expansion, because there was no other information given. They've announced a Warhammer dice game. I'm assuming that this is just going to be a Dice Masters expansion. But there's been absolutely zero information except for Warhammer dice game coming.
Now, as you know, a store runner, do you think that there's actually any market for Warhammer and the Dice Masters kind of regime?
Yeah, I mean, there was a market for D&D and Dice Masters.
Yeah, but I honestly
wasn't
didn't
necessarily
see
a market for Yu-Gi-Oh and Dice Masters.
I'm just saying, I didn't see the D&D Dice Masters sell nearly as well as any of the superhero stuff.
Well, no, because the most people that were playing Dice Masters in that location were playing it for the superhero stuff. There are people who love D&D and buy things that are D&D. They'll buy that might be the only Dice Masters they buy, and they'll just play the D&D stuff.
Okay.
I would assume the same thing would happen with the Warhammer. The comic book ones have a broader appeal, where D&D and Warhammer definitely has a narrower appeal.
Mm-hmm.
The only other way you have any more of a crossover is if the cards are better than the hero counterparts. So, like, if you can make a competitive deck with those characters, then those will sell. But, I mean, I've seen such a downtrend in Dice Masters anyway. I know there are still players out there, but even then I've heard it's cooled tremendously. And it's not to say that was because of the Star Wars Destiny dice game, as much as it started to cool before that.
Now, I mean, again, you have the benefit of, you bring these products to market and you see the sales happening. Do you think that this is more advantageous for one partner or the other? Or do you see this as kind of a moot point altogether? That being said, I know that Fury of Dracula is something you really wanted to add to your arsenal. We had the opportunity to do a playthrough with Rolling Outlaw. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Luckily, when I got my copy, I managed to get it before
the price spike.
It really skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if nothing else, it's good to get some of these other games reprinted and out there. But do you find this as an advantageous partnership or being more one-sided for one or the other, Wizkids or GW?
Especially, no, I mean, GW has good intellectual property. Like, I didn't know, like, when it was announced that they were severing ties with Fantasy Flight, I didn't know that Fury of Dracula was a GW property. Who would? Like, that doesn't... It's not Warhammer. Like, to me, GW is Warhammer and that's it.
Well, Warhammer in all essences. So Warhammer Fantasy.
Right.
And 40.
Anything Warhammer is under GW.
Correct.
Fury of Dracula is not Warhammer. It's not even remotely Warhammer. So I was surprised that this game was a Games Workshop property. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, the biggest problem I've always had with Fantasy Flight games, they're great, they look great, they're pricey. As a gamer and as a business person, I would love if we could get board games like $20 cheaper.
As someone who gets rinsed like this week and last, I think, I kind of agree with that.
I understand that. I understand there's a lot of development that goes into these games, and I understand there's a lot of production in these games, and you need to make money. Like, you need to get those people paid. You need to get everyone that worked on the game paid. You need to get the company paid. You need to pay the 5 cents of plastic out in China because that's what it actually costs to print. Paid. But I think you can do that by selling more copies. And if instead of selling a game at $80, you get that cost down to $60 and you sell, you know, thousands of more units, I think it then becomes a plus sum game.
Well, I mean, you got to look at this from a couple different standpoints. I mean, granted, I totally agree. When you look at, you know, your Zombicides, your Cool Mini or Not properties, almost all of them come in at $99. You look at your Armada, you know, some of your other Fantasy Flight, you know, miniatures-based games. They're all coming in core sets at $100.
Yeah.
$100 buy-in.
And then you have to add on to these.
Yeah, $100 buy-in. In a lot of instances, you almost take the younger gamers completely out of the equation.
Yep.
You know, you're already targeting this at a more, you know, teenage to, you know, above gamer bracket. Most of these are actually already adults, you know, providing for themselves.
Yeah.
But the challenging part of this, I think, and probably not that I'm trying to defend the price of games, is different companies, and I think this applies more to the independents. I think this is shame on companies like Fantasy Flight, Games Workshop, Cool Mini or Not. I think the more independents, the people who are utilizing their Kickstarters and trying to kick off, I can understand a higher price for higher risk. You know, in companies like Cool Mini or Not, where they know they demand a certain amount of the market, they should be okay with making their money back on saturating the market with copies. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be a matter of, well, I'm going to aim at just this market, put out a game at $100, and only sell 250,000 copies. Mm-hmm. It's not going to hurt them to sell this game for $60 a box and maybe sell 500,000.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm with Cool Mini or Not, I'm willing to concede the point that while I agree $100 for any game is a tough sell, and so that's the downside. I can at least make the case with the Cool Mini or Not, like Zombicide. You have the complete game in the box. Yes, they come
absolutely.
out. They'll come out with 1 or 2 expansions. Like for Black Plague, there was really just Wolfsburg as an expansion. Now they'll come out with monster packs and mini packs mm-hmm. with better sculpts or different sculpts of certain characters or new characters that you can add at a $15 to $20 price range. Not necessary for the game. You still have a complete game in the box. Now, stuff that generally uses add-on stuff, like say an Armada, say an Imperial Assault, which you can argue Imperial Assault comes with the entire game in a box, but the fact that they've done like 5 waves of add-ons, it's a BS concept. When Fantasy Flight put out X-Wing, it's a $30-$40 starter set. Mm-hmm. Now you can make the case that starter, which was enough for 2 people to play, came with I think 3 ships, 1 X-Wing, 2 TIE fighters, and the rules that you needed and cards to get you started. Mm-hmm. And then you have $15 ships after that, waves of $15 ships. A $40 barrier of entry for a game that you're going to have to keep adding on isn't that bad. A $100 thing like, say, Armada is atrocious and makes it so hard to sell. Now, you can see you'll have the argument of like, well, I can get it online for $70. Okay. I mean, Fantasy Flight a year ago, or was it Fantasy Flight? It was Fantasy Flight or in Cool Mini or Not a year ago. Kind of talked to local game stores and said, you know, what are some of the obstacles you have with our product? And one of the obstacles were, look, I have a storefront, I have employees, I have costs that I need to pay every month. I'm buying your product. Yes, I'm getting a discount, but I need to sell your product. And then you turn around and you give that same discount to places that'll then only, you know, sell online only and, you know, sell it for $10 over their cost because they don't have any sort of overhead that they need to charge. Just somebody in their basement, you know, who values their time at $10. And the company was like, well, we're going to institute a policy where you can't sell it for lower than this. And if we find out you're selling it for lower, we're going to stop selling to you. That I thought was such a good idea. And I'm not saying like if the MSRP is $100, the minimum price should be $100. There should always be wiggle room. There should always be wiggle room to have a sale. But
yes, sales, please.
But the fact is, like, local game stores where people go and play games and build communities can't survive saying, well, I can get this game online for it's a $100 game. I can get this online for $50. I can't sell it to you at $50. I don't make any money at $50. I lose money at $50. So the more people get pushed to online sales because companies allow people to sell it at whatever price, you're going to see a lot of game shops if they don't have any other ways to mitigate that revenue, you're going to see places just start disappearing.
No, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for going out there and, you know, pay where you play. As you know, I bounce from a couple different shops for a couple different focuses, and I always try to leave a little something here and there. 80% of my game sales and book sales all come from an FLGS. I will admit there are some instances, whether it's, you know, as an Amazon Prime member, something pops up, and it's something that was off my radar, and it's just too good of a bargain to turn up. You know, I think we all get caught up in that from time to time.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
there's stuff that the local shops can't get because they're out of print or it's just out of stock. Like I don't tend to buy stuff online. I do every so often. I do when I can't find it in the store. So that's one thing. And I mean, the other thing is and I'm really only zeroing in on places that are just selling it at a stupid discount that, you know, it's just somebody in their basement. Like if the MSRP on a game is $100 and someone came, you know, and someone has it online for $90, okay, you know, that's kind of reasonable, you know. You know, so I'm really just digging in on people.
Yeah, you're honing in on the fulfillment centers.
Yeah.
You know, where you got someone who never really puts their hands on the product. They're just a middleman from A to B.
Yeah.
And they collect they're collecting whatever, you know, pittance they get off of that.
Yeah.
And they're making their value based on the amount of numbers they can push, because they're selling it at such a heavily discounted rate.
Well, I mean, and there are some cases where, like, for me to get product in, I have to front the money. I have to pay bills, you know, to get the product in. There are some fulfillment centers out there that don't.
Yeah, they're
That
strictly...
they don't even order the product until they have a sale for it. So it's essentially just saying, give me your $50, and then I will turn around and pay the $30 or the $40 or the $45 for the product and have it shipped directly to you, and I make $5 for doing absolutely nothing.
Absolutely.
You know.
I mean, to be honest...
That's why there's also some stuff like I'll only get in as a special order. Like I have a price cutoff that I won't get something over an X dollar amount for the shelf unless I know for a fact I have a sale for it. But like this game, $50. $50, you can play it tons and tons of time. Now you can make the argument that it only has was it 6 miniatures? So I've noticed like most of the time my gripes become with games that feature lots of miniatures. Because again, you know, miniatures cost a lot of money to produce. Like 10 cents for the plastic. It's insane. It's how costly it is.
I mean, no, you're talking the plastic. We're looking at, you know, just kind of to take a look at Exiles, Mindworm Games. Benson handcrafts all of his molds. When you kind of get into that, and the overhead is all in the time and money that it takes to make the mold. And every one of those sculpts you spit out have to have a rate of return, so you at least break even and try to make something on those molds.
You're talking about a small independent person as opposed to a company that's all they do is pump out miniatures. Like there's a difference between one guy not having all of the technology to just make these molds out of thin air like Games Workshop does, like Fantasy Flight does. You know, that there's something to be said for like independent being costlier. So yeah, I can understand when an indie game is a little expensive because they don't have that infrastructure yet to be able to mass produce these. But I'm talking about like mass production places.
I don't know. I think I would have to learn a little bit more of the process.
Right, and
you know,
and yeah, and again, like you have overhead as Fantasy Flight. You have overhead as Games Workshop. You have hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people on your payroll. I don't know how big the companies are. I would assume Games Workshop has like 1,000 people. Fantasy Flight, I'm not sure. I know they're based out of Minnesota. But yeah, you have people on your payroll. I just think that if we can find a way to kind of meet in the middle, you know, just, you know, drop that price down a little bit more to try and get people into the genre. And look, Fantasy Flight does Arkham Horror, the card game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I think the base game's $40.
$40 base game, yeah. $15 to $25 for the add-on, depending on whether
for the add-ons. That's not unreasonable. Like,
no, not at all.
Like a $40 game. Yeah, I mean, $40 is nothing to sneeze at nowadays.
But you can play it out of the box.
You can play it out of the box.
Living entity.
Yeah.
At $40.
Yeah, and you can play several times. Like we got also coming out, also dropping this week is Pandemic Legacy Season 2. And that's a $60 to $70 MSRP. That's a little like that's pushing it to me. Like that's on the cusp of that's when people start checking out. But I mean, Pandemic has a track record of being a really good game. Legacy Season 1 was a really good game. And this is a game that you're going to play because to get through the beginning to end of this game, you have to play it at least 12 times.
Yeah, and this is a full circle game too. This is the 4th. This will tie the full circle of Pandemic Legacy, correct?
No, this is just the sequel.
Okay.
So, I mean, you're going to play the game at least 12 times because that's what it takes to get to the end of this game. Chances are you're going to lose along the way. So, at most, you're going to play the game 24 times because that's the most you can play it before you just suck as a human. But, so you're figuring, like, if you look at it, it's a $70 MSRP for a game that let's say you play 12 times. That's $6 a playthrough, $7 a playthrough. When you break it down like that, it's fine. Whereas, like, if you buy, say you buy Fury of Dracula at $100, you play the game once, you played the game. Now, you might play it with different people, and the game experience does kind of change based on that. But you've reached the end of the game, so if you never play that game again, it costs you $70 for a game that you played once, or $100 for a game you played once. So that's local game shops are great because if they have that stuff available as demos, you can at least play it to see if you're like, all right, I would love to play this game every chance I get.
To make sure you got replay value so you can utilize it.
So, I mean, you want to keep pumping out games at that price point? Fine. Give the local game shops the ability to get the demos in for less than $70. Because I'll be happy to set up a demo space. I'll be happy to walk customers through a game, especially if I like the game. I would love to be able to sell Fury of Dracula to everybody, to every horror person. I will show them the game. I will walk through the game with them. I just need a demo copy of it.
Absolutely. But we've definitely run kind of over our regular forte here.
I blame you.
I'll take that blame. And I don't really want to segue out of this. I kind of want to leave this episode on the note of, support your local FLGS. If we don't go out there and we don't, support the things that we want to read, support the things that we want to buy and play, then it's only a matter of time before there are no more, friendly local game stores.
Yep.
And not for nothing, the vendors, the game making companies, the book making companies, they're not helping us here. It's not like they're going out of their way to drop prices, to change models, to support, the FLGS model. As long as they're selling copies, they're not really
right. Which I understand to a point. But I mean, it's the adage of like, so you have Amazon gets all this traffic and Amazon gets all this business, and I'm just harping on Amazon mainly because they're the easiest point to make. So this Christmas, if everyone bought everything off of Amazon and you force every retailer out of business, like every brick and mortar retailer out of business, there's a few impacts. One, now you don't have all these brick and mortars buying your product to stock it. So there's got to be some sort of negative point to it for a company like that. But as far as people go, and this is one thing that I've never really seen, like everyone's like, well, Amazon employs people. Yeah, Amazon employs people. Do they employ a shit ton of people? Who knows? I don't know how many people they have at the Amazon proper delivery warehouses. But if you shut down all of the retailers, you are closing off a very large chunk of the workplace, the workforce.
Well, you're killing workforce.
And then they have to go find other jobs. And there's only like at least retail, you can always argue, you can always be hiring. You can always be hiring in retail if your sales are good. If your sales are good, you can keep adding people. If you're in a corporate structure, if you're in a law firm, there's only so many lawyers you need.
Yeah, but I mean, I for as much as I think you make a good statement, I think that you're underestimating the ripple effect across the board. You kill the local FLGS, you kill the communities and you kill the format for which gamers can meet other gamers, can get into an unplugged environment and do that. What happens when you do that? By doing that, doesn't it have, the ripple effect in reverse? Now you have less people, because there's less community.
Yeah.
What good's a 6-player game if you don't have 5 other people to play it with?
I mean, I'll be willing to argue that there is never a good 6-player game.
We'll accept that as a challenge. If you happen to know
If
any...
you guys have a suggestion for a good 6-player game, let me know. And I swear to God, I will not take anyone seriously that says Resistance, One Night Ultimate Werewolf.
Isn't Coop a 6-player game?
But that's Resistance. That's probably a little bit better than Resistance. I've played Resistance. It's fun. That game just gets old very quickly, just because of there's never any mechanisms ever built in for how long people can just argue amongst themselves. And after like the 1-minute mark of people arguing amongst themselves, I just want to murder them all.
Point taken. So, in a note of that, support your local FLGS. Anyone who has any recommendations for a good 6-player game, if one exists.
And it's got to be good at 6 players. I don't want to hear a game that's like 1 to 6 players and like, it's a 6-player game, just play it with 3 people. Because there are some games that just don't scale well.
I will totally agree with that. I think...
This does scale well. Well, at least Betrayal at House on the Hill scaled well. I don't know if this does. But I think next episode we're gonna open this up and look at the components and
we'll get the table done. Get the table in the studio and see what's going on. But so that concludes this episode. If you like what you see, please comment, rate, and/or subscribe. I'm JR. This is Palma signing out. We'll catch you next week.